We're often told that we're living in the best time in human history. Technology is advanced. Information is everywhere. Life is easier, faster, and more convenient than ever before. On paper, everything looks perfect. And yet, many people feel an unexplainable emptiness beneath it all. A quiet dissatisfaction that doesn't go away with success or comfort. A sense that something essential is missing, even when life looks fine from the outside. Think about something simple like walking into a supermarket. The shelves are full. Hundreds of cereal options stare back at you. Chocolate-flavored, organic, gluten-free, sugar-free, oat-based, keto-approved. At first, it feels empowering. So many choices. So much freedom. You feel in control, like your preferences matter. The abundance creates the illusion that you're the one deciding your life. But if you slow down and really think about it, an uncomfortable question appears. Who decided these were the choices available to you in the first place? You didn't grow the grains. You didn't create the food system. You didn't design how food is marketed or distributed. You simply stepped into a system that already existed and picked from it. You didn't even stop to ask whether cereal is the best way to start your day. You simply walked in and selected from a list that was already prepared for you. No one forced you, and that's the key. The lack of force makes it feel like freedom. This is where the modern idea of freedom becomes interesting. We are told that we live in a world of endless possibilities, that we can be anything and live however we choose. But much of that freedom exists inside boundaries we rarely notice. The limits are subtle, not obvious. They are social, economic, and cultural rather than physical. It's freedom within a pre-designed menu. You can choose from what's offered, but questioning the menu itself feels unnecessary or strange. Most people never pause long enough to ask bigger questions. They assume the structure of life is natural and unchangeable. You see this pattern everywhere. Take careers, for example. You're encouraged to follow your passion, but only as long as it pays the bills. You can be creative, but eventually you're expected to monetize it. Passion is celebrated until it stops being profitable. Then it's quietly discouraged. The message is subtle but constant. Be yourself as long as it's economically viable. Do what you love, but make sure it fits into the system. Freedom is conditional, not absolute. And most people accept this without realizing it. Even our opinions exist within limits. We're told we can speak freely, but only until our ideas challenge the structure too directly or make people uncomfortable. There is an invisible range of what is considered acceptable to think or say. Step outside it and consequences appear. Not always punishment, but silence, rejection, or ridicule. It's narrow but decorated so nicely that most people never realize they're standing inside it. The boundaries feel reasonable, even logical. They are enforced socially rather than violently, which makes them harder to see. We often confuse variety with freedom. But freedom isn't choosing between dozens of brands. Real freedom is being able to question why those choices exist at all. It's the ability to step back instead of just picking faster. To ask whether something adds meaning or just fills space. It's asking whether a choice is meaningful or just noise created to keep us distracted. Noise that keeps us busy but not fulfilled. Stimulated but not satisfied. Consumer culture sells freedom through customization. You can choose your clothes, your phone, your coffee, your playlist. Everything feels personalized. But personalization is not the same as autonomy. It often just makes consumption more attractive. Step outside the unwritten rules of success, beauty, productivity, or status, and that freedom quickly shrinks. Suddenly, the support disappears. You're labeled unrealistic or irresponsible. The system tolerates difference only within limits. The system doesn't need to force you. It rewards you just enough to keep you comfortable and compliant. Comfort becomes a substitute for freedom. And convenience replaces curiosity. Even rebellion has been absorbed into the system. Feeling different is no longer threatening. There's a style, an aesthetic, a brand for it. Nonconformity is now a market category. It's something you can buy instead of live. What once challenged society is now sold back as merchandise. You're encouraged to feel unique while staying safely predictable. Difference without disruption. Expression without risk. The illusion works because it feels good. You feel like you're in control. You feel like you're choosing your life. Feeling in control is often enough to stop questioning. The mind settles when it feels agency, even if it's limited. But often the paths were laid out long before you arrived. The reward is just enough success, just enough validation, just enough pleasure to stop you from asking deeper questions. Enough to keep moving forward. Not enough to stop and reflect. Real freedom doesn't begin with more options. It begins with awareness, with seeing the box instead of decorating it. Awareness is uncomfortable at first. but it's the only place where choice becomes real. This becomes even clearer when you look at productivity culture. You wake up, check your phone, and see a quote reminding you that you have the same 24 hours as the world's most successful people. Immediately, comparison enters your mind. Your day hasn't even started, but pressure already has. Before you've even started your day, you already feel behind. Behind an imaginary standard. Behind a race you never agreed to run. Busyness has become a measure of worth. Being tired is seen as proof that you're trying hard enough. Rest feels like something you must earn. Doing nothing feels wrong. Slowing down feels irresponsible. From a young age, we are trained to chase approval through performance. Grades, achievements, promotions, likes. Over time, many people internalize the belief that doing more makes them more valuable. The belief becomes automatic. It shapes self-esteem without being questioned. The system benefits from this mindset. The more insecure you feel, the harder you work. The harder you work, the more you consume. And the cycle feeds itself. Effort creates exhaustion, which creates more consumption. And yet, the finish line keeps moving. No matter how much you achieve, there is always another goal, another benchmark, another reason to feel inadequate. Satisfaction is always postponed. Peace is always after the next thing. Even rest has been turned into a task. Reading must be educational. Walking must be tracked. Stillness must be justified. Leisure must prove its usefulness. Nothing is allowed to exist without purpose. We've forgotten how to exist without producing something. Without improving, optimizing, or documenting the moment. Existence alone no longer feels enough. And that's where the quiet anxiety begins. But humans were never meant to function like machines. Nature has cycles. It rests. It pauses. It doesn't bloom all year. Life expands and contracts. Growth happens in waves, not straight lines. Yet many people feel guilty for slowing down, as if their worth disappears the moment they stop being useful. As if rest must be defended. As if stillness is failure. This leads to a deeper question. Who are you when you're not doing anything? When there's no role to perform, no task to complete? Ask someone to describe themselves and notice how quickly labels appear. Job titles, personality traits, social roles. These labels feel solid and true, but they are often borrowed rather than discovered. But where did these identities come from? Were they chosen consciously or slowly shaped through expectations, rewards, and pressure? Most identities form quietly, without consent or awareness. From birth, the world begins to define you. Your name, culture, gender, values, and behaviors are reinforced through praise and correction. You learn what is acceptable early, and what must be hidden. Over time, you learn what is rewarded and what isn't. Gradually, a version of you emerges that fits neatly into society. This version keeps you safe, but not always true. Modern identity is often constructed rather than discovered. Social media doesn't just reflect who you are, it suggests who you should be. The comparison never stops, and neither does self-editing. You don't simply live anymore, you curate. You perform. Every post becomes a statement. This is who I am. And also, please approve of me. Even authenticity becomes strategic. The problem begins when the performance replaces the truth. When the role becomes permanent. When the mask feels safer than the face beneath it. When stopping feels dangerous. Many people live their entire lives without ever meeting their authentic self, because they're too busy maintaining the version that gets approval. Approval becomes survival, and survival becomes identity. Sometimes, though, the mask slips. In moments of silence, in moments of exhaustion, in moments of breakdown, when there's no energy left to perform, when distraction finally fails. And beneath it all is something real, something unpolished, something that doesn't need to impress anyone. That part feels quiet but solid. Familiar even if forgotten. That part of you still exists. It hasn't disappeared. It's just been ignored. Waiting patiently. Not demanding attention, only honesty. Then there's comfort. Modern life is designed to reduce effort. Food arrives instantly. Entertainment never ends. Discomfort is avoided at all costs. Everything is optimized for ease. And ease feels harmless. Comfort feels harmless, but it quietly shapes behavior. Too much comfort dulls awareness. It lowers our tolerance for boredom, silence, and challenge. Discomfort starts to feel threatening, even when it's necessary. Growth requires friction. Reflection requires stillness. But when life is constantly padded, those moments disappear. There's no space to feel deeply, no reason to pause. A comfortable population is easier to manage, less likely to question, less likely to resist. Not because people are weak, but because they're distracted. Comfort isn't evil, but unexamined comfort can slowly disconnect you from yourself. It numbs curiosity and replaces depth with distraction. The emptiness many people feel isn't random. It's a signal, a reminder of something lost, a call from the neglected self, a quiet request to return. You are not your productivity. You are not your online profile. You are not your achievements. You are a conscious being, and the path back to yourself doesn't require a dramatic life change. It begins with attention, with noticing instead of numbing, with honesty instead of performance, with small moments of silence, with choosing presence over distraction, with allowing yourself to exist without explanation. Slowly the fog begins to lift, and clarity returns. Once you see the illusion, it becomes harder to live on autopilot, and that awareness, quietly and slowly, is where real freedom begins.